Yo, welcome to the Thursday night line movement kickoff show. We don't have Thursday night football tonight, but that doesn't mean we aren't going to walk you guys through the week 13 slate. Guys, it feels like just yesterday, week 12 ended. Oh no, that's because week 12 did just end yesterday. I'm here with Matt LaMarca, Joe Holka. LaMarca, how we doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I don't know if you remember, we played a little head-to-head contest last week, and
Yes.
I decided to bring a friend on the show today.
This is anyways, over to Joe
Officially
Holka.
the Thanksgiving head-to-head championship belt. I don't know. Should I keep this here all stream, or
You have to.
has it made a point?
I think you made your point, and I want to say genuine thanks for taking my money and donating it to a good cause, a charity. Thank you for doing that, LaMarca.
What a
Well,
guy.
I promised the chat I would do that, so I had to.
Son of guy.
I enjoyed doing it anyway.
What do we do on the
Hol-
show, Pete? I felt like I was just babysitting the entire week last week. I forget what we actually do here. Are we breaking down the slate? Are we doing betting? Are we doing DFS? I can't even keep it straight anymore.
Yeah, those are the things that the host normally says. We're going to cover the week 13 slate. LaMarca is going to get us covered from a betting standpoint. Joe Holka will get us straight and narrow on the DFS perspective. I feel like everyone's a little bit behind this week. Ownership projections are a little slow coming out. So we might be flying a little bit more blind than we're used to, but this is what we do on Thursday, right? We figure this out on our feet.
Sounds good, man. I feel like why is this that everyone's kind of a little bit behind right now? Is it like we get through Thanksgiving, everyone like kind of takes a breath for a second, and then it's just like, hey, guys, like it's week 13. We got stuff to do.
Yeah, I know for at least even this week for waivers and stuff, it was hard to do stuff. Like if you had guys on like COVID IR and it wouldn't let you drop and process things, and it was just a mess. And then I know the guys that do projections, they're focusing on, they need all the data from week 12 to update their stuff. So I think it just kind of slows everything down. But we got some stuff to work with here. The other thing is we just have a ton of injury situations. Again, lots of DNPs, lots of limited. So again, like I said, we're going to figure this out on our feet. Let's jump in right here. 1 p.m. Eastern. We have Chicago hosting the Lions. It's going to be Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. It sounds like Nick Foles is healthy, but he is going to be the backup quarterback. LaMarca, do the people love Trubisky, or are they backing the Lions here?
No, nobody wants anything to do with Mitch following that disaster of a performance against the Packers. Not that the Lions looked any better last week playing against Houston, but that game was a few days earlier, so it's obviously not fresh in everybody's mind. The Bears, 3-point favorites here. The Lions getting 60% of the bets, 64% of the dollars. The key thing for me that I'm monitoring here is Kenny Golladay. The Lions offense has been anemic in games without Golladay this season. Yes, they got 25 last week against the Texans, but the last touchdown there was definitely garbage time. They were losing 41-17 before they punched one in. So Chicago, I think this is an interesting time to buy low on them, especially if Detroit is a little bit shorthanded.
Yeah, Joe, I don't think Kenny Golladay is going to play. And basically what I'm hearing about DeAndre Swift, there was that quote from Adrian Peterson today about where he's like, I'm genuinely worried about him. He doesn't seem like he has the energy levels. It didn't sound to me like a guy who wasn't going to play. That said, his injury tag today, they said was like illness related.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So he's out of the concussion protocol, but or I guess missed practice with an illness. So yeah, I don't know. That's odd. I was hoping that we might get him back, and you can just continue to ride that first game off of injury trend that you've been doing the whole year, Pete. But that's what's so weird about this game is it feels like there's a couple plays that are going to be very popular, and then like no one else after that. So like David Montgomery is going to be the chalk at 5,500 against this Detroit defense that like if you schedule adjust it, Mike Tagliere was on my show earlier this week, schedule adjusted Detroit, you can make an argument it's one of the worst defenses in the league across the board. So Allen Robinson 6,700 is the other one that's going to probably grab some ownership here. Are you guys going to be on board with Mitchell Trubisky at 5,400? It just seems like a week where there's, I guess, some reasonable value. So maybe you don't have to go there because he hasn't been very good, but he's been good against Detroit if you guys care about that kind of stuff.
Interested in it. I mean, we've seen in his career Mitchell Trubisky have these blow off spots where, he rushes one or two in, passes two or three, ends up in the winning Millie Maker lineup. I like a lot of the prices on the secondary options outside of Allen Robinson. I think Darnell Mooney's viable at 3,400. We have a changing of the guard at tight end with Cole Kmet now passing Jimmy Graham here. Season high 66% of routes per drop back. Jimmy Graham now down to 34%. I think he's viable as a punt tight end. And yeah, I just like how this lines up, and also leverage on what I think is going to be David Montgomery chalk. So things are lining up for me right now to play Mitch Trubisky. Am I crazy, LaMarca?
No, I mean, I like Trubisky. Here are my two concerns. One, I wish it was going to be like a sub 5% owned Mitch Trubisky. And I don't think that's going to be the case. People know that he plays well against Detroit. He's passed for 3 touchdowns in each of his last 4 games against Detroit. So he's not going to be sneaky. You can definitely correlate him with, some more contrarian stacks, throw in a Darnell Mooney or a Cole Kmet, and your ownership's not going to be a problem there. But, Trubisky's a guy you want to grab at like 2% ownership, not 6% ownership. The bigger concern in my mind is I just don't know who to run this stack back with on the Detroit side. I guess you look at TJ Hawkinson, but Marvin Jones is dust. DeAndre Smith might not play again.
But he was third in the league in air yards last week.
Okay, but you gotta convert some of those occasionally.
All that matters is opportunity. He is not in the AJ Green, T.Y. Hilton dust category. I agree. I have an age bias, and I'm even interested in Marvin Jones. It's too far.
All right. Well, if you like Marvin Jones, then I think this is an appealing game stack run it back spot.
Yeah. I do think Hawk, his targets without Galladay have been really good. It gets a little trickier if you want to use Cole Kmet in your stack, and then you don't want to run out double tight end. But that is that. Let's move on to this Miami Cincinnati game here. Miami's hosting Cincinnati, 11.5 point home faves. We have some, injury stuff going on with the running backs. It looks like they might get Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed back. But I assume the bettors want to back the home fave here.
Yes, but not by like an overwhelming margin. So the Dolphins are getting 53% of the spread bets, 60% of the dollars. So it's not an overwhelming lean on Miami. I think if it was going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick instead of Tua, I think the betting activity would be much heavier on Miami. It's the rare weird spot where the backup quarterback probably makes the team a little bit better than the starter does at the moment. And Cincinnati, even though they were atrocious last week, they did still manage to cover. So I think that people are going to look at this and say, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable laying 12 points with the Dolphins. I probably would go that route. Cincinnati put up like 150 yards of total offense last week against the Giants, who are not a good defensive team. I think they're really going to struggle against the Dolphins. But, again, Tua is not the kind of guy that I really envision putting up a ton of points on the other side of this game.
Yeah, and Joe, we actually have a little uncertainty at quarterback. Flores has come out and said he's not going to announce his starter until Sunday morning, which thank you so much for that. What do you like in here for DFS? I think it's like nothing really jumps out, but I feel like there's some diamonds in the rough here.
Yeah, Cobra in the chat basically made the same point that I was going to make. I don't really have a ton of interest in Devontae Parker if Tua's in the few games that they've played together. It just hasn't really gone near as seamlessly as it does with Ryan Fitzpatrick chucking it down the field. So I think that's the big thing. I don't have any interest in Myles Gaskin or this running back, I guess, trio in general. I get that they're getting healthier, but now there's just if DeAndre Washington's going to come in and get at least a few touches there, Breda's there in the passing game, I don't know, Ahmed's going to be back. It just seems like a complete disaster at running back. I think that there might be an argument for someone like T. Higgins on the other side at 4,600. Like, the quarterback play is just not going to be near what it was, but I do think he's really talented and he's still going to see a decent amount of volume, relatively cheap, but this seems like kind of a gross game overall. Fitzpatrick's not in.
I do think there are scenarios where I would be interested in Ahmed. I think a likely scenario is Gaskins doesn't play necessarily. He's been practicing, but they still haven't activated him. We'll find that out on Saturday. They've shown a willingness to use Ahmed as their primary back. And Washington was the third guy they tried last week. They gave Breed a shot, fumble. They gave my guy Laird a shot, fumble. And then all of a sudden, DeAndre Washington finally came in. You could chalk that up to him still getting, familiar with the system, new guy there that came over at the trade deadline. But I would have a little bit of interest in Ahmed if Gaskins isn't good to go. Anything else for you here, LaMarca?
No, this game is pretty much a hard avoid for me in DFS, unless Fitzpatrick plays, and then maybe we can look at Devontae Parker or even like a Mike Gesicki possibly.
Yep. All right, let's move on to a pretty interesting game here. Houston, the Will Fuller less Houston Texans hosting Indianapolis. The Colts are 3.5-point road favorites. What are we doing here, LaMarca?
Yeah, the Sharps are teeing off on the Colts, which is something that they have done basically all season. This line dipped down to 3 at one point, and that's when the Sharps really attacked Indy. They're getting 90% of the spread dollars at the moment. So people love the Colts, and I totally get it. Houston has played well recently, but they haven't exactly faced the best competition in the world. And now they have to do it without Will Fuller, who's, easily their top offensive playmaker. So Indy, bad game last week, but the Titans have been known to do that to teams from time to time. I think that this is a spot where they get right.
Joe, looking at early ownership, I'm kind of intrigued by this game because I think there's going to be some nice leverage spots. Brandon Cooks is going to be popular. I think Jordan Akins ends up catching a lot of ownership as the punt tight end du jour. And then we'll see if people end up getting on QT or Coulter here. What are you liking in this game?
This game sucks, man. I want like none of this chalk. Like literally, I think that the Cooks chalk is terrible at that price. I think that this game, like this team, we should be looking at completely differently without Will Fuller. And there's some people that are doing that, and there's some people that just want to give this role over to Brandon Cooks, and I think that's a huge mistake. And I think that, yes, maybe Kiki at 3,500 sees a little bit more volume, but he's not going to just come in and take the Will Fuller volume. So I actually think that the Poulter play is somewhat interesting because he's going to come into some more deep targets in theory. I was hoping that maybe Jordan Akins would be the one that we could use to leverage, but at 2,900 there's going to be some people going that direction. I don't know, man. I kind of just want to be light on this game overall if it's going to be popular. Am I crazy?
Yeah, I don't think this is a game I would stack up because like you said, the Watson side is going to be popular. I mean, Rivers is dealing with a foot injury right now too, so it's not appealing from that. But this is a game where I could see playing one-off like leverage pieces. Michael Pittman Jr. continues to be interesting to me. 4,900 had 9 targets last week. Didn't have a ton of production, but he's still easily their best and most talented wide receiver. LaMarca, sounds like you want to give that stamp too.
Yes, Michael Pittman for sure. And honestly, I want pieces of this Colts offense. I agree with Joe that I don't necessarily want to stack Phillip Rivers just because I don't see a ton of upside for him. Like the 300-yard, 4-touchdown game is not really in his realm of outcomes at the moment, but I want some pieces of this Colts offense, like a Nyheim Hines, maybe, maybe even if you want to go real cheap, somebody like T.Y. Hilton who caught a touchdown last week. I don't know. Pittman's really the guy that you want here. But again, I think that the Colts could provide some offensive value this week.
I mean, Houston's been so bad in their secondary too. I think one of those guys is going to have a big game, and my age bias will continue pointing me in the direction of Pittman over TY. Let's move on to this Minnesota Jacksonville game. The Dalvin Cooks are hosting Jacksonville. They are 10-point favorites. LaMarca, are any of the sharps taking a nibble on the points here?
Do you consider me a sharp? Because I like Jacksonville quite a bit. But just looking at the betting data, it seems like Minnesota is the preferred side. The betting tickets are kind of split down the middle. Minnesota getting 54% of those, but 79% of the dollars landing on Minnesota. That's pushed this line up from 9 at opening to 10.5. That said, I think Jacksonville can find success on offense in this matchup. Mike Glennon looked respectable last week. He's obviously not a guy that you want to build your team around in the long term, but he moved the ball against Cleveland. Minnesota is dealing with, they're not the best defensive team in the world either. So if DJ Chark comes back in particular, that's sort of the big injury to monitor here on the Jacksonville side. I do think that they could keep this game more competitive than most.
Yeah, Joe, I feel like from the Minnesota side, this is shaking up, classic standpoint. You have Cook as the pretty big chalk. You have Justin Jefferson coming in there, in the 20% range, Thielen down in the 10% range. It makes it tough for DFS because there's no like leverage on either side. You basically have to take a stand. Are these guys you want to take a stand on?
It's kind of scary. I would push back a little bit on Mike Glennon pushing the ball downfield or moving the ball. 57% completion rate. His yards per attempt was only 6.7 yards last week. So I don't know. I think he was just okay. I guess the game script should be there in this one. So if you wanted to go after someone like Keelan Cole, I'm totally okay with that. I don't know if I'd want to go, I guess, taking a shot on someone like Chark, or if Conley comes back. Both these guys were limited on Wednesday. Like you said, the Minnesota side is a little bit easier to decipher, I think. Justin Jefferson, 6,900 is a guy that will continue to go to based on volume. Maybe Adam Thielen. No one wants to pay that price tag for a guy coming off of COVID. So I think both of the wide receiver options are interesting. I'm a little bit more scared about Dalvin Cook personally at 9,500. He's battling through that groin injury, and this is a guy that I love to play. It seems like it's an interesting running back slate overall, because I think there's some people that are kind of getting a little bit too much of a false sense of security for guys like Derrick Henry, guys like Chubb that aren't going to give you much through the air, but now they're really expensive. Dalvin Cook, I think he's 300 more than Henry, so I wish he was healthy because I would just love to jam all the Dalvin Cook this week. Great spot against Jacksonville. So I guess I'll kick it to you, Peter. Like, do you think he's healthy? Like, is he going to get his normal workload, or do you have some of the same concerns I do?
No, I have concerns. And they all kind of compound, if it was just the injury, but not with the elevated price and ownership, if it was just one of those, I would be okay with it. But there's too many things where at 9,500, you really, really need him to put up 30 points to pay that off. And we know he's capable of it, but you also have, I think some blowout risk, and the team, like you said, if they're smart, they give Alexander Mattison more touches here. Like, you don't take your workhorse and pound him in the ground when you're 10-point home favorites when he's banged up. You just don't do that. So yeah, I have concerns. I'll be curious to see where ownership settles. That'll probably ultimately be my tiebreaker. If he's down in the 15 to 20% range, I think I could stomach it. If he holds here at 30 or pushes higher than it, I think I'm off of it. Let's move on here to this Vegas Jets game. We got Vegas 9-point road favorites here. The Jets, LaMarca, are they trying to win football games?
No, I think it's pretty clearly that's a no. If they were, they would have already fired Adam Gase. But they continue to let him walk around and make idiotic press conferences where he makes claims like not designating a play caller gives his team a competitive advantage over the rest of the league. So maybe that advantage comes to fruition for the first time all season, Pete, but I don't know. Consider me skeptical. The Raiders are the side here. They're getting, obviously, the public support. They're getting the sharp support. This line opened up at 8. That was a absolute gift. I know that the Raiders played terrible last week, but that was a clear emotional letdown spot against, after nearly beating the Chiefs the week prior. They let their guard down and Atlanta caught them. They're still in the playoff hunt. They need this game. They're going to take care of business against the Jets team that just cannot score with Sam Darnold at quarterback.
Yeah, this is a really interesting spot, Joe, because I've loved picking on the Jets for DFS this year. We did it with the Chiefs. We did it with the Chargers. But here, they didn't have Josh Jacobs practice today. Nelson Aguilar didn't practice today. If we don't get Josh Jacobs, I mean, Devonta Booker, I think, is going to be a pretty good play at 5,500. What are you doing with this game?
I think this is one of the harder games to figure out, to be honest, because I think that even if we get Josh Jacobs in this game, no one's going to play him at that price if he's had a little bit of an ankle injury issue that he's been battling through. I think the wide receivers on the Jets side are still interesting. I'm still going to keep taking shots on Denzel Mims. Perriman's a little bit cheaper. We're still seeing some volume as well. Not as much interest, I think, in Jamison Crowder at 5,100. I don't know. Have you guys been taking shots on guys like Henry Ruggs? I haven't played him once all year. He's really only had that one game where he kind of went off. He's got an insane average depth of target, so maybe there's some upside there overall. This game seems a little bit gross to me. I would imagine that, yeah, the Raiders still come out there and take care of business. Maybe just Darren Waller, nothing else for me.
Love it. I want to play Carr and Waller, and then I want Aguilar to be out so I can play one of Renfro or Ruggs. I think the thing that really docked Ruggs here has been Aguilar's emergence as their primary deep threat. So I think if you take him out of the equation, you spread those targets around, I think it makes a lot of these guys viable. And man, I am the biggest sucker for Denzel Mims. I know he, we get the prayer yards out here, but he continues to see a ton of volume. He almost mossed a guy last week, ended up drawing the pass interference here. LaMarca, am I allowed to do my Derek Carr double stack with the Mims bring back and call it a day?
Honestly, I ran that stack last week, so it would be, well, not against the Jets, obviously, but I ran Carr, Ruggs, and Waller on my main team. So it obviously wasn't a great week for me. But I saw enough upside to play it against Atlanta because I thought Atlanta could keep the game competitive. And obviously that ended up being the case. I don't see the Jets doing it. I'm sorry. I understand the love for Mims. I understand the love for Perriman. These guys do look great when you look at all the models, but they don't take into account the fact that Sam Darnold is averaging like 180 passing yards a game. You know, like if you want the Denzel Mims week, he's going to have to finish with like 75% of Sam Darnold's passing yards in that game.
Yeah, we'll concede his price is now up. We've seen it inch up from the minimum to 35. He's up to 4,100. So it's getting a little bit more pricey. I do still think, I mean, he can get there, with one big play and a touchdown. He pays off that price tag. But it is concerning. You see the Jets, on 4th and 1, run Frank Gore right up the gut. To just turn it over on downs. And you're like, this team is not trying to win. I'm a glutton for punishment, though. I love Denzel Mims, so I probably will have a decent amount of him. Let's move on to this New Orleans Atlanta game. This is a rematch from a couple weeks ago when Taysom Hill had his debut. This one's in Atlanta. It looks like Julio is pretty dicey. LaMarca, I'm curious what people are betting here.
Yeah, right now it looks like the Falcons are the preferred sharp side. They're getting 44% of the bets, but 68% of the money. That's dropped this line from 3.5 to 3. I have concerns, though, if Atlanta is without Julio. I mean, prior to last week's showing, their offense has been markedly worse in games with Julio out or limited. They've dropped from averaging like over 30 points for him with him in the lineup to something like 17 and change. Now, granted, they scored 43 or whatever last week without him. So maybe we're just talking about small sample size regression, but I find it much less likely that they can succeed against a better New Orleans defense if they don't have their best player.
Joe, Sasha in the chat says Hayden Hurst is now not practicing. I missed that today. I don't think we're going to see a ton of ownership in this game. Do you have any spots you like?
Am I crazy? I kind of like Michael Thomas. Like I understand like that just in general, this hasn't been like an appealing offense to go after, but I kind of like that. Like we're pretty confident that the first read is Michael Thomas right now for Taysom Hill. So like the type of target, yeah, they're not going to throw very often, but he's been proving that that Michael Thomas, at least on volume, can still kind of get there at 7K. If he's not going to be owned, I have a little bit of interest there. There's ceiling for sure. He had 12 targets in a game with Taysom Hill. So I think that's the interesting one. The thing that's nice about that is he's being targeted heavily in the red zone as well. He's got 5 red zone targets over the last 2 games. So I guess the biggest question I have is it like even within the realm of possibility if Alvin Kamara is like sub 5%, like is there enough upside there to justify just the massive ownership discount you're getting?
I think so, honestly, at 7,000. There are a couple other tournament options that I'm pretty interested in that we'll talk about, but his routes per dropback did jump up again last week. They had really dipped. He was up to 64%. Obviously, Taysom Hill isn't throwing a ton to anyone other than Michael Thomas, but I do think there are some things to be encouraged about here. Getting back home, the Falcons have been really bad against defending the pass for running backs as well. Kamara on that fast track. We know he can break big plays. Maybe Taysom Hill gets a little bit more comfortable in the offense. I mean, it's a tough spot going on the road in Denver. I know they crush, but like, Vic Fangio has been a good defensive coordinator. Like, that was a tough spot. Maybe Taysom Hill finds his bearings here. I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into it, LaMarca. Am I crazy?
I think Taysom Hill is a bit of a fraud, so I don't have a ton of interest in the Saints. He's very happy that Terrell Hinton played last week, and everybody was focused on his, passing performance and hiding the fact that Hill completed 9 passes for 78 yards with an interception and no touchdowns. Hill's still going to have fantasy value because he can run the ball, but I just don't see him as a guy who's going to make the players around him relevant.
The thing that actually is the most important thing, even more so than Taysom Hill, throwing more, whatever, is I think we need the Falcons to hang in this game or get a bit of a lead, because the Saints, when they steamroll, we know they're just going to use Latavius Murray.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, can we get the Falcons in a shootout here? I guess if they don't have Julio, that's going to be much harder to do, right, Joe?
Yeah, maybe. I think the Kamara thing is, I mean, it's just so weird to see him at that price, at that ownership. So I guess I'm probably going to be fading it if I guess I lose to the weird random Alvin Kamara game in this spot. I'll probably live with it. Like, are we interested in Latavius at 5,900? It still seems like there's volatility to that projection overall, right? Just in in terms of touches.
Yeah, I hate that price for him. And you need him to boat race teams or run so pure at the goal line. And those are, and again, Latavius is one of those guys that you play him when Alvin Kamara is 45% owned. Like, and you're getting leverage. I don't like him at that price and no leverage opportunities. All right, let's move on to another game I'm pretty interested in here. The Titans are hosting Cleveland, 5.5 point home faves. What are we doing here, LaMarca?
Oh, I hate Cleveland. I am gonna fade them basically from here on out. They're 8-3, but they're probably the worst 8-3 team I can think of in recent memory. I mean, if you asked me to pick another one, I couldn't. So they have a Pythagorean win expectation of 5-6 this season. They scored by 30 points. They've benefited from a soft schedule, from playing 3 games in hurricanes. Like, everything that could have broken right for Cleveland this season pretty much has. I think they're bad. And now they're going to play a real team against, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans aren't great defensively, so maybe Cleveland can score a few points here, but they just beat Jacksonville by 2. I think Tennessee is going to put a number on them.
As someone who has Browns season win total under ticket, this team just frustrates the absolute hell out of me. Joe, I do think this is ripe for the fantasy picking, though. What do you like here?
Yeah, one of the things that Tagliere brought up on the show, there should be a video up tomorrow morning from that segment as well on the Line Movement channel, so go check that out. He's really high on the passing game overall for Tennessee, which I kind of like now that we're seeing the ownership kind of trickle up a little bit for Derrick Henry this time of year. I mean, even if maybe if that price tag like has some people just like not interested overall, there's enough people that are going to want to play Derrick Henry in this game, I think, to where the passing game from the Tannehill side is super interesting. AJ Brown, 7,600, he's pretty expensive, but I like Corey Davis in this spot as well. The type of target share that he's had over the last couple of weeks, I think, is interesting. Landry, easy bring back on the other side, or if you did want to take a shot on one of those running backs overall. So I think this is a game that, like, this was the highest total of the week for a while. Is it still on the main slate? Like, if you would have told me that about a Cleveland Browns Tennessee Titans game earlier in the year, I would have said you were crazy. So I think it's an interesting game, but definitely a lot of different pieces you're going to have to work through. Like, if Jonnu is banged up, I know he was limited again on Thursday. Do we have any interest in these cheap tight ends, a Jeff Swaim or Anthony Fursker at Stone Men, Pete?
Yeah, it's hard because I thought Fursker was kind of the guy behind there for most of the season, and then Jeff Swaim had more targets than both Jonnu and Fursker last week. So yeah, I'm always interested in these punt tight ends in good spots that aren't going to be super popular. So that's one I want to look into more closely. I think Jonnu Smith still might be a pain in our side here too. If we're trying to, if we have a 3-way tight end committee, we know via the Indianapolis Colts how annoying that can be for fantasy. So I don't know. I might find better spots, but I do agree. I like the passing game here. And I also think Jarvis Landry on the other side continues to see a massive target share in this offense right now. He's really the one guy that Baker consistently seems to trust. And man, I keep saying it. I get pushback. I get it. Everyone loves Nick Chubb. He's great. But Kareem Hunt at 5,400 seems very mispriced to me. And if this game shoots out more of an up-tempo game, he's on the field a lot, I think he could absolutely smash his price tag there. Are you guys in on that?
You think it's weird that he's only seen 3 targets in the last 2 games, though? Like, we kind of think of him as this guy that's just going to be like the pass catching back with a little bit of upside around the goal line. But like Nick Chubb had a season high in receiving yards last week with 32 yards on 3 targets. And I mean, so he actually saw a decent amount of work in the red zone as well, 4 attempts in the red zone last week. So are we overthinking this like outdated narrative with Kareem Hunt taking the goal line work and the passing game volume? Maybe Chubb is a better play than I originally thought.
2 weeks ago where he got all 4 of the green zone touches, and he also got a little banged up in that game last week. To me, I feel like it's a little noisy. I feel like these guys are much closer, and I think they also play in a kind of a game script dependent way where they were front running last week against the Jags. So of course it was going to be a Chubb game. I mean, if this Vegas total holds and they are underdogs in a shootout, I mean, it just screams Kareem Hunt to me.
I'm too close to the Derrick Henry thing. LaMarca, what do we do with this guy?
I think if the ownership is pointing towards Chubb, you take the discount with Hunt, but I'm way more interested in just playing Jarvis Landry. Ooh. I mean, the Titans are much worse against the pass than they are against the run. They're 27th in pass defense DVOA, 17th in rush defense DVOA. And I don't think Landry's going to be like mega chalk. I mean, I could be wrong there, but
I don't think he will be.
Landry's one of my favorite plays on the slate, to be honest. Like his box score doesn't look great outside of last week, but keep in mind that the 3 previous games that the Browns played were all in, 20 plus mile an hour winds. So as long as this, isn't another hurricane type situation for the Browns this week, I expect Landry to get, 10 plus targets and to do well with them against this secondary.
Let's move on to this Seattle New York Giants game. Seattle is hosting the Giants. I don't know if we're going to get Daniel Jones or Colt McCoy here. LaMarca, the Seahawks are 10-point favorites. Do the betting markets not care who's at quarterback for the Giants?
No, they care. I do think that this line, we saw some 7s early in the week. I think that was the number when it was expected to be Jones. Now that it's kind of expected to be McCoy, it's 10, which feels about right to me. I would say that Daniel Jones is about 3 points better than Colt McCoy. But one thing that I did dig up since, going back to 2003, Colt McCoy is the 7th least profitable quarterback in the NFL. He's 7-21 overall as a starter, and he's not much better against the spread. He was not good last week against the Bengals. Seattle has started playing slower again. They're starting to run the ball more now. This game screams under to me, guys. I don't know if you agree with that narrative, but I don't expect the Giants to score points if McCoy is at quarterback. I mean, they haven't officially ruled Jones out yet, but I do think that's coming. And with Seattle not, the kitchen is closed for Russell Wilson, so to speak, I think that that's going to limit their points too.
Yeah, Russell, Pete Carroll on the record, he has some magic number of completions and rushing attempts he wants to hit as a tribute to Vince Lombardi. He said, no, Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, they're doing too good. I need the credit. Let's revert this offense back to the 1950s, Joe. That's what we do here. People aren't going to play DK Metcalf again, Joe. They're not.
Oh, because of James Bradbury, right? Like, we can't play that guy. There's no way.
It's Tyler Lockett weekend. James Bradbury, he's too expensive.
Just X out this guy that's just a clear freak on the field that no one can even stop, even if they tried. Like, can we just play DK Metcalf? Like, I think that might be the only player in this game that I really want. I'm with you guys on Russ. He's probably too expensive. He's getting taken out of the kitchen. Maybe the defense for Seattle, they're not really a defense that was pressuring a ton, but last week 6 sacks. Maybe that has more to do with how terrible Carson Wentz is. Did you guys watch any of that game? He can't get the ball out of his hands right now. It's actually tough to watch. I watched a little bit of that game just showed on sleep.
There's some serious Derek Carr, David Carr vibes with him at the moment.
It's sad, man. It's actually really sad. But yeah, weird game overall. I just think that if we can get Metcalf at sub 10, we do it.
Yeah. DK Metcalf last week, 83% market share of the air yards. That is unreal. Look, guys, Lockett's fine as a player, but DK Metcalf is in a different stratosphere than him as a player and the targets he commands.
Can I just
Oh, go
give
ahead.
like a slight voice of reason here?
Go for it.
I mean, Eagles used Darius Slay against him. Like Darius Slay is fine, but he is not a shutdown corner. He struggled against Patrick Peterson, 3 catches, 46 yards, and a touchdown. He struggled against Jalen Ramsey, 2 catches, 28 yards. So I get that it's fun to say that matchups don't matter, and maybe they really don't for DK Metcalf, but just because he found success against Darius Slay, that doesn't make me say all of a sudden, oh, this guy is just going to win against every cornerback that he faces.
To me, it's the ownership thing. If DK Metcalf was at 15, 20%, I could find ways off him at the price tag and that stuff. But if you're telling me DK Metcalf is going to be 5% because people are worried about a cornerback, I'm just going to jam him. Like I'm not worried about it. All right, let's move on here to Arizona. They are hosting the Rams. When I looked at this one, LaMarca, just the line, it kind of stood out to me. I was like, I kind of want to take the Cardinals as 3-point home dogs. Is that what the Sharps are doing, or am I a square again?
No, I do think that Arizona is the correct side here. The advanced line in this game was -1 for the Cardinals, but after they lost to the Patriots, now it's sitting all the way at LA -3. So pretty drastic line movement. We have seen some steam tracked on the Cardinals, meaning, large groups of bets getting down on the Cardinals at the same time. So that's usually an indicator of professional activity. I do think that the Cardinals are probably the correct play here, but I don't see, I think that it's like, I would have said that the Rams were the correct side if I could still grab them with a point. Now that the line is 3, I think it's about where it should be, because I do think the Rams are the better team. They're probably one of the most underrated teams in football right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot, Joe. Are you worried about Kyler? It seems like the shoulder is an issue. He's not running as much. His rapport with Hopkins hasn't been clicking. Or is this a bounce back spot?
Man, this feels like one of those spots, especially for someone with Kyler Murray, that's very expensive, that people have been playing all year and having a lot of success. They're just like, oh my God, I can get Kyler Murray at 5%. Maybe I don't care so much about his shoulder. I don't know, man. This seems like a spot that it's definitely been limited. It limits his upside for sure. That's part of the reason its price is where it's at, is because he has been using his legs a lot. So I have some concerns there. I don't think he's that easily stackable because of the price tags. Like I don't have a ton of interest in DeAndre Hopkins at this price because his volume hasn't been anywhere near where it was at the beginning of the season. I know he still had some spike performances here and there, but some of those games were ones where we thought there was going to be a lot of pace overall. And I think that LaMarca kind of hit it. This LA team, especially on defense, is super legit. So I think that I'd prefer just to move down to one of the LA wide receivers, Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods, for a decent price tag. I guess a decent amount of savings versus Nuke and Kyler. But I don't know. Am I looking at this ownership and just not taking advantage of something that's super like a decent opportunity?
No, I think the issue is I agree. I think Kupp and Woods are good plays in a vacuum. They're priced too cheap. I think the ownership is going to follow there. I think both of them are going to be fairly popular. I think the Rams running back situation is interesting. We saw Cam Akers. He had that 61-yard run, and then they let him get the touchdown, and then he got all the carries after that. So, part of me wants to say, oh, we got a changing of the guard here. Cam Akers finished strong. Malcolm Brown still led them in routes, in snaps, in targets. Like, Malcolm Brown isn't going away, but LaMarca, if we knew Cam Akers was going to get 15 touches, he becomes very, very interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, I've fallen for the Cam Akers trap before. Like he's had weeks where it's like, oh, Akers got 9 carries. It's his time.
You guys are out of your mind.
I don't think well, that's what I'm saying, Joe. I'm not ready to make that call anymore because I've taken the bait too many times.
Yeah. I also, some other interesting things here I don't think we're going to get Larry Fitzgerald again. I mean, Andy Isabella is basically in the same spot he was last week at 3,200.
How are his air yards, Pete?
I don't even have that in front of me.
I want to say he had 6 targets, but they were like all bubble screens.
Yeah.
Were they?
Which Yeah, they were like manufacturing touches for him around the line of scrimmage.
Interesting. Flop
But
Yeah,
leg.
Kyler can't throw it, so
someone just said Kyler will practice in full off the injury report. I mean, that at least bodes well for the shoulder. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of have some interest in these guys. Kirk, I think, is in a nice price, 5,200. I'll take a drink because I was gonna say he was in the air yards by low model.
Andy
Anything
Isabella
else?
A dot 1.7 yards. Go ahead, Pete. Last
That
one.
was like that's like Debo Samuel, right?
Yeah.
He has like negative air yards right now, but still just absolutely popped off. I mean,
I
if
mean,
it, you know,
Dan
we'll
Arnold
take
is lapping him in air yards right now. You know something's going on.
true. All right. Let's move on to this. We were talking about Philadelphia here. Philadelphia, they're on the road in Lambeau, 8.5-point road dogs. Seems like a very, very bad spot for Carson Wentz and the Eagles here, LaMarca.
yeah, I mean, for me, this is the most disappointing team in the league versus the most surprising team in the league. You know, like I know Green Bay won 13 games last year, but their Pythagorean win expectation was closer to a 10-win team. Like they clearly got lucky last year. And then they doubled down by drafting a backup quarterback and a running back who has like 20 touches this season. So I did not think that Green Bay would be as good as they are because they're legit this year. Rodgers is playing as good as he's played since he won the MVP back in 2014. Their offense is just crushing teams, and their defense is not great, but fine. Meanwhile, Philly, I know that they have had injuries on the offensive line, injuries in the receiving core, but they are just playing terrible. I was hoping to see more of Jalen Hurts last week. Little disappointed that he played just 2 snaps. I do think that his mobility would give them another option behind a poor offensive line. You know, he can move better than Carson Wentz, and he's just a really intriguing prospect in general from like a metric standpoint. So I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see him, but it seems like Doug Peterson is willing to go down with the Carson Wentz ship. And I think that's what's going to happen here. Aaron Rodgers, too good as a home favorite historically. The Sharps, for whatever it's worth, do seem to like Philly. They're getting roughly 20% more spread dollars than spread tickets, but I just don't see it.
Joe, I don't think outside of Devontae Adams that there's going to be a ton of ownership in this game. You know, I would otherwise maybe be getting excited about Miles Sanders at low ownership here, but he's been losing a lot of work to Boston Scott. Aaron Jones, I feel like, is going to be the decision point. Where do you think his ownership comes in?
And I think people do kind of want to play this game. I've heard a lot of people talking about, at least like some of the initial ownership projections I'm seeing aren't really shelling that out yet. But I think people see like what Aaron Rodgers has been able to do. This offense been so efficient overall that I think that like Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, like you said, I think Aaron Jones probably ends up closer to like, I don't know, 15% or so. So I don't think it goes over owned, but I think there's enough ownership here to where it makes still a reasonable fade if you don't think that Carson Wentz can do anything on the other side. Like people don't understand how important it is for the other quarterback to at least do something. If you're just looking at the correlation numbers, quarterback, opposing quarterback, it's a higher correlation or higher R value than wide receiver 1. Like it's really important. 0.59 is the correlation between quarterback and opposing quarterback. And God, like Carson Wentz has the yips right now. I don't know what he's got to do to get right, but it's looking really bad. So I think that, yeah, everything could go perfectly for Aaron Rodgers, and they just have this really efficient game. He still throws 3 or 4 touchdowns, and you're fine. But it's possible this game sucks. I actually truly believe that. I mean, maybe that's just another argument in favor of Aaron Jones. If he ends up being around 10%, maybe I'd have interest in that. I don't know if I want anyone on Philly. I think it's a little bit too spread out. Now that they're a little bit healthier, we got Alshon out there, the corpse of Alshon Jeffrey, just taking away targets, running routes. It's just an absolute joke. We might have Ertz back. It's going to be way too spread out for Philly for me to have any interest.
Interesting. I would have some interest in Goddard if Ertz isn't back at 4,300. Had a pretty nice roll there. Any other plays you like here, LaMarca? I mean, the main guy, I just want to play Aaron Jones at sub 10% ownership if I can.
I'd be in on that.
I mean, maybe he ends up there, but I don't know, guys. Like Jamal Williams is just the ultimate parasite. Like we want to make
go off.
Aaron.
I need you to go off so we lower his ownership. Talk about Jamal Williams.
He had the same number of carries as Jones last week.
Go off, King. This is what I need.
Jamal Williams, we all want Aaron Jones to be a thing. We all know that Aaron Jones is better than Jamal Williams. But Jamal Williams just is not going away. Like, he is going to play approximately 50% of the running back snaps. So,
but here's the thing. If only 10% of the field wants him to be a thing, I can live with that. It's when everyone wants him to be a thing. That's when we don't play him.
That's fine. I'd rather play Rodgers. I buy the narrative that like these games where their Packers are going to dominate, you want Rodgers. Like, I know that we don't typically think of that for quarterbacks, but Rodgers is just the ultimate king of like the 5 touchdown first half. Like, he is a bully on the schoolyard, and if he senses weakness, he is just going to push your face in the dirt. So I really think that if this game ends up being a blowout, that Rodgers ends up being the most valuable fantasy asset in this game.
What did you think? Did you I might have to pull up a chair, get some milk and cookies for little story time, little stroll down narrative street there with LaMarca talking about the bully on the schoolyard. I like this.
Well, look at me. Nobody bullied me, okay? And I was not a bully.
I looked at you, LaMarca.
Who's gonna bully this guy?
I'll verbally.
I was like a starting left tackle in 6th grade.
I will taunt you. I will taunt you into a head-to-head that I will drunkenly lose. That's that's the extent of my bullying.
Is that a weekly thing now, or are we letting that die?
I don't even remember it. So yeah.
Fair enough.
All right, let's move on to the last game on this main slate. Interesting game here. The Chargers are hosting New England. I'm seeing they're only 1-point favorites right now. I guess I would have assumed like 3 here. What do you think, LaMarca?
Yeah, people are buying the quote unquote coaching mismatch here. They're seeing Bill Belichick against Anthony Lynn, who can't even tie his shoes properly on the football field.
So bad.
And they're like, there's no way that the Chargers are going to win this game. Even if they are winning this game, they will find a way to blow it, because that's what the Chargers have done all season. So I personally think the Chargers should be favored. Like, you look at what they've done, they're the better team here, right? They're better than New England. But how much of an edge do you give the Patriots in the coaching department, and how much does that matter in your analysis of the game? I personally want to be on the side of the Chargers, but if that happens and Anthony Lynn shoots this team in the foot for the 19th consecutive week, I will not be surprised.
Joe, I don't think outside of Eckler, there's going to be a ton of popular plays here. I think people have to make some tough decisions on the Keenan Allen splits with and without Eckler right now. Saw a little reduction in work with Eckler getting 13 high value touches, 16 targets, monstrous workload. Eckler's one of your guys. Are you going back to him here?
I mean, number one, how good does it feel that we were that early on Austin Eckler and still bricked all of our tournament teams because we didn't have Tyreek Hill last week? So that was rough. I mean, he's still $1,000 too cheap. He's $7,100. Like, this is the role that we've just been falling over ourselves to play with Alvin Kamara most of the year. So I mean, 16 targets last week, cut that in half to 8, even cut that into thirds. He's still a fantastic play at this price point, in my opinion. So I think the concerns are that New England kind of makes this game a little bit gross overall, and Anthony Lynn definitely a concern. I guess they're just going to continue to, let him help them lose games, and then they get a better draft pick, and it looks better in the future. I still am a sucker for Jacoby Myers. He's $5,500. He's probably a little bit too expensive, but I still think the volume is there if you are looking to pair someone with Cam. Do we have any interest in Cam at $5,800? I think I've probably played this guy too much this year, but I guess I love the rushing ability that he at least has in his arsenal, and it's a pretty clear stack.
He had 6 fantasy points last week.
I told you I have probably played too much of him. I haven't said that I wasn't victory lapping Cam Newton, LaMarca.
Yeah, no, he jumped out to me at 5,800 with his price tag. I mean, with his rushing ability, he's always going to have one of the better ceilings, and I do think Jacoby Myers is just a super clean, skinny stack with Cam. You bring it back, with Eckler, maybe you toss in a Hunter Henry there, get, 4 guys in this game. and hope that it goes over this total. LaMarca, did you say you like the under on 47.5?
I don't really have a take on the over-under. My take is don't play Cam Newton. The ceiling, the quote-unquote ceiling for Cam Newton is he hasn't cracked 25 DK points since week 2. So it's non-existent right now. He might rush for 50 yards and a score, but he's not going to get you the 15 to 20 points that you need with his arm. Unless you think the Chargers come out and just put up a big number, it's going to be very tough for Newton to hit his perceived ceiling. And even that isn't a guarantee to get Newton there at this point.
Talking. No, I want to play Cam Newton at 1%. LaMarca.
Yeah, like
let's play a head-to-head, and you take Cam Newton.
All right, well, who are you on beside, I guess, Cam Newton or Mitchell Trubisky? They're like the same price. They're both sub 6K.
Trube easy.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too.
I would also take Derek Carr over him.
That's gross. Can't do that one.
Like being put in this spot. I like all three of them.
Well, you got to pick one.
Of those three, I prefer Carr.
Ugh.
So do we all have a different preference?
Yeah, I think so. No, I'm not. I'm not ready to die on the Cam Newton train. I don't think yet.
Yeah. I will just co-stamp though the Jacoby Myers thing. I mean, he's basically had one. The game he was the chalk week. You know, he ended up with a 7% target share. Other than that, he's just had monstrous target shares. So I like going back to Jacoby Myers there. And yeah, and just to put a bow on it with Eckler, you know, my kind of thing with these guys is if they are elite talents like Austin Eckler that catch passes, I can deal with chalk if they are underpriced. You know, it's if he's 9,500 and chalk, yada, yada, then I'm like, okay, whatever. But at 7,100, I'm willing to eat that chalk on Austin Eckler. Like he has the role, he has everything that we want, and I'll get more unique in my lineup elsewhere. Any final takes on this game before we touch on the island games?
I'm good. I think we covered it. Marco?
No, all right. I want to say one thing real quick. Since I didn't really get a chance to talk about this game, but my favorite running back play of the week is James Robinson.
Okay.
Just lock, like, you want to talk about chalk that gets there every week. Like, it doesn't matter if the Jacksonville Jaguars are losing by 40 points in this game. He's going to get his 20 carries. So I feel very comfortable playing him at 7,300. I'd have no problem pairing him and Eckler together and then just getting weird elsewhere. So if you are going to eat chalk, running back's the spot to do it.
That has been one of my leaks in DFS this year, is not playing enough James Robinson.
Same.
The dude continues to stay underpriced. He has an insane workload. The team is willing to run the entire offense through him. I need to. This is a note to myself, Peter. Play more James Robinson. You need to do it. All right, let's just get off some quick hot takes on these island games. We have now a double header on Monday night. Now that we have the regular Buffalo at San Fran game, we have Pittsburgh now hosting Washington, and then we have Kansas City hosting Denver on Sunday Night Football. We can just touch on whatever is most interesting to us here. LaMarca, anything jumping out in any of these three games?
Well, I mean, predictably, everybody loves the Chiefs. They're 14-point favorites, and they're still getting 71% of the bets and 89% of the dollars. I won betting against Kansas City last week, and there's absolutely zero chance I'm going to try it again in week 13. The Steelers game for me is interesting. Right now, we have very little betting information because these teams played yesterday. You know, the Steelers played yesterday. But it looks like Washington is going to be a public dog, which I think is interesting against an undefeated team. And then Buffalo, San Fran. Yeah, sounds like a fun Monday night. That's all I got.
Yeah, initially I thought, weren't they going to maybe do a triple header?
Yes.
For Monday night initially, and I was getting real excited about a do-over on the 3-gamer. Yeah, I think these are going to be interesting games. Kansas City, man, they're just so fun to watch right now. Their pass rate above expectation. Our friend Michael Leone was posting some stuff. They actually just passed the Seahawks in pass rate over expectation. So they're letting it rip there. You know, Mecole Hardman still not a thing. Demarcus Robinson running ahead of him. Sammy Watkins getting healthy. Joe, any other notes on these games?
Tyreek Hill's pretty good. He's 8,800 if you want to go there. I feel like obviously last week he goes crazy, but even like the couple weeks before when he wasn't on the main slate, 14 target game, 18 target game. He's got a 10 target game in there. Like this guy is just getting absolutely fed. So yeah, I kind of wish we would have maybe taken a deeper look at him last week, but we were just so all in on all of our Derrick Henry mini stacks. We couldn't make it work, man. It's tough scene.
It seems like the Chiefs have become more condensed recently. Like it's Kelsey and Hill garnering a large majority of the targets, and that is just the best from a fantasy perspective. It kills Pete's favorite player, Mecole Hardman, but everybody else benefits.
That's probably
Like
true. Like
14
they used to
favorite
have a
players.
pretty decent negative correlation, Kelsey and Tyreek together, and now it's like pretty close to neutral. So I would imagine that it's just been very strong lately. So that's sharp.
Joe gives me a hard time about being bad at plugs. I will do a plug for my Bankroll Challenge show tomorrow at noon. I'm having Stuart Gibson from Advanced Sports Analytics on, and his specialty is correlations. ASA has this really slick player correlation app, so we can go through, check things out, like how are Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill correlated right now. So if you guys would like to tune into that, we're going to get deep into the weeds on correlations there. We will also, as Joe mentioned in the chat, for the tilt space this week, we're going to fire a single bullet. Normally, we like building a few lineups so we have a few more chances at a sweat. We're going to fire one in this $4,444 contest, $200,000 up top. Joe, I think we're all pretty excited about this one. Just a super nice flat payout structure on a 250-person contest.
Yeah, I mean, we got out to like a really good start with this bankroll, obviously, but I think we've kept it relatively between the lines at times. So we've taken some shots. This is a spot where we said if there's like a contest that comes along that is structured very well and it's a little bit outside of our bankroll, we'll still take some shots. So I think that'll be cool. It'll be a nice change of pace. Just kind of focus on one team. I think it's a good slate to do it. Honestly, I think there's some games that might be a little bit more popular than maybe we like as a group. So I think we get weird, man. I think we like go for the win on this one. Why not?
Yeah, well, like we have no problem going for the win with our lineups. We don't get scared. You know, Leone has pushed us both in very aggressive directions. So you guys can tune into that at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. Should be fun. Hopefully we have a sweat. And of course, we'll be back on Sunday morning as usual at 11. Joe, Dieter, and I, catching us up on all the latest news and notes. We'll have updated ownership, all of that good stuff to get you guys ready for the week 13 slate. LaMarca, anything you'd like to plug over there in Bully Land?
I'm excited to just watch you guys. I'm going to be living vicariously through you, chasing that big first place payday. So I will be tuning into the tilt space. Other than that, if you want to check out my betting thoughts, they are posted live right now over at Line Movement. And I will be back to cover the Monday Night Football doubleheader. So I will have all of the betting stuff posted on Line Movement this week.
There you guys go. There you have it. We appreciate you guys coming out and hanging out with us tonight. No football to go to. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with our nights? I'm actually hopping over to our ship chasing. We're going to do a waiver show here, talk about some good pickups and some of our teams in the FFPC main event. If you guys want to keep hanging and drinking with me tonight, please subscribe to the channel. The Line Movement channel continues to grow. Lots of good shows, all kinds of MMA action going on the channel as well right now. So please do subscribe. We also have the podcast version as well. If you guys would like to subscribe, get those shows in your podcast feed. The iTunes link is below. So shout out to all of you guys. Thank you to Joe Holka, Matt LaMarca. I'm Peter Overzet. We will see you guys on Sunday for the NFL Kickoff Show.